Hey, Renew Church. It's good to be together this morning as the family of God, family of Renew Church. Great to hang out together. Thank you for being with us today. We're in a series called Three Things, as you know, and today we're talking about three things that you need to know about love. This morning, obviously, we've been playing on a little bit of an 80s theme. It was nice to have Freddie Mercury with us here in the studio this morning. Wow, did we learn a lot this morning in a lot of different ways. So I was going for the Marty McFly vibe. I don't know if any of you caught that, but definitely 80s. Back to the Future, 1985, right? Actually, Ranker says that movie was the second most quintessential 80s movie, second only to Ghostbusters. So just a little trivia for you. Of course, the title track for Back to the Future was a song done by my favorite 80s band, Huey Lewis and the News, of course. The song is The Power of Love. You ever listen to the words of that song? It says, the power of love is a curious thing. Make a one man weep, make another man sing. Change a hawk to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love. We're going to talk about love this morning. You know, I'm a lyrics guy, and if I'm going to like a song, I have to like the lyrics with it. Now, I like good melodies too, for sure, but I like lyrics that have some meaning to them, some depth to them, because I believe something about music. I think that every song is trying to tell me something, and I want to know what the artist was trying to tell me, what they're trying to communicate. And whatever era you grew up in, I know we're not all 80s children for sure, but whatever era you grew up in, you know what? People have been sending you messages. They have. They're giving you information about certain things and impacting the way that you think. And there's no greater theme in music than that of love. We hear the theme of love coming up all of the time in music. I remember hearing so many different perspectives from different 80s artists when I was a teenager. I mean, there's so many different perspectives. I remember Madonna saying, "Love makes the world go round." I remember Tina Turner saying, "What's love but a second-hand emotion?" You remember that one? Whitney Houston said, "Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all." Pat Benatar said, "Love is a battlefield." We've probably all felt that at one point or another. Bono said, with the band U2, "Love makes nonsense of space and time." And Elton John said, "Churches and dictators, politics and papers, everything crumbles sooner or later, but love, I believe in love." To Elton John, Sir Elton John, talented man. Well, you get a lot of mixed messages, don't you? A lot of mixed messages. And with all of the messages that you get from TV and movies and advertising and social media, you could actually end up being thoroughly confused about love. You really could. I think a lot of people today are confused when it comes to love. And there are a lot of angles to consider for sure. This is not a simple topic. We could be talking about romantic love, parental love, friendship love, neighborly love, charitable love, right? Just doing good in society. We all have different experiences with love as well. Sometimes things start out really well, and then it kind of goes sour on us. Sometimes we actually get disillusioned by love. There are a lot of songs about that. But down deep, here's the thing. I think we all do kind of agree with Sir Elton John, and I think we all do believe in love to a great degree. I think we really understand that this is something foundational, some very strong principle in our world. Well, I don't think you're going to have any trouble buying into my first thing that you need to know about love this morning. Here it is. The first thing that you need to know about love is that love is the most powerful force in the universe. Now, this is obviously hard to prove in terms of physics, I understand, but many people would agree with this statement. Philosophically, you know, there's a pretty strong argument that whatever or whoever caused this universe that we live in was benevolent in nature, right? You can look around and kind of see the benevolent nature of whatever caused what we are experiencing here in what we call life. For all the problems in the world, we actually pretty much all agree that life is predominantly good. We enjoy way more pleasant weather than we do hurricanes or tornadoes. We enjoy far more health than we do disease. And even people are far more kind than they are violent. Now, I know that that's hard to remember when we witness the violence and the racism that we've been witnessing here recently. Many of you have been following the story of George Floyd. And guys, let's be honest, there is so much that we need to improve. So much. But here's the thing. People are overwhelmingly prone to kindness and over hostility. As much as we see hostility take place in different times and places, people are way more prone to kindness. You know, even anger that people demonstrate sometimes is often motivated by love. That's an important thing to remember. Even anger can be motivated by love. Well, a guy named Akar Patel wrote an article for Live Mint, that's associated with the Wall Street Journal, back in 2014. It's called "The World is a Good Place. Here's Proof." And a very interesting article. And he actually goes back and studies some different things to demonstrate that the world is a good place. And he actually focuses on a lot of military stuff. He says, when General S.L.A. Marshall surveyed the American soldiers of World War II, he found that only 15 to 20% of them, quote, would take any part of their weapons, even when action was spread over a day or 2 days or 3. Now, what was he meaning by that? Well, if you actually understand what he's saying that means that 80 to 85% of the soldiers in World War II did not fire their weapons at all during combat. You realize that? 80 to 85% of the soldiers didn't fire their weapons at all. Now, this is not an isolated case as you study different military scenarios. Historians have discovered that of the 27,574 muskets that were found after the Battle of Gettysburg, 24,000 of them were found loaded. Many of them actually, and you can tell this by studying the rifle, many of them had been loaded several times without being fired. In other words, what this means is back in the Civil War, soldiers liked to be seen loading their guns, right? They would stand upright and load them. They liked to be seen loading their guns far more than actually firing them. In the Napoleonic Wars, same thing. When regiments of trained soldiers faced each other and opened fire from 30 yards away, that's how they used to do it way back then, the rate of hitting was only 1 or 2 per minute. But in target practice, it was hundreds. So what does all of this tell you when you study out this kind of behavior? Well, students of war have long understood that even in what we consider to be just wars, human nature is strongly against taking life. In other words, love is a powerful force that resides somewhere in the heart of human beings. It often lies quietly beneath the surface, but it is powerful. And very regularly, we see it rise to accomplish some pretty amazing feats. I love the passage in Song of Solomon, chapter 8. It says this, it says, "Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death, its jealousy as enduring as the grave. Love flashes like fire, the brightest kind of flame." The book of Song of Solomon, of course, is about romantic love. But that statement is true of all forms of love. It is powerful. It is like a fire, like a flame. And we understand this about love. It is a powerful force. Now, there's no one verse in the Bible that comes right out and says directly that love is the most powerful force in the universe. But there are some clear statements that really help us sort of agree with that premise. The first statement is the statement that God is love. In 1 John chapter 4, John actually says this twice in this chapter. The word love is mentioned more in this short chapter than any other chapter in the Bible. And the fact that he says this, God is love, it means that love is more than just an attribute of God. It is actually a foundational part of who God is. That God and love are the same thing. God is the essence of love, and love is the essence of God. And anywhere that you look and it looks different, that God is looking other than being loving, it is because we lack information on that situation. Here's the thing. If God is the most powerful being in the universe, and we usually ascribe that to whatever notion we have of God, then we can also safely say that love also is the most powerful entity in the universe because God is love. Okay, you following the logic? The second statement that we see is that love never fails. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 8, and then also in verse 13, it says, "Love never fails, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love." So love never fails. That means that love, you know what, it's always victorious, and it never ends. It's eternal, the Bible says. Now, we all instinctively know that love is these things. We know that love is powerful. Love overcomes fear. We see it overcome racism. We see it overcome selfishness. We see it overcome obstacles. The power that love has is incredible. Have you ever taken the time to just notice what a man will do for a woman that he loves? Have you ever taken the time to notice what a mother will do for a child that she loves? Like, love is a powerful force. It is as strong as death. And so I submit to you today that God and love together are the most powerful force in the universe. The second thing that you need to know about love is that if you pursue love long and hard enough, you will find God. You will find God. I really believe this to be true, and I'm going to hopefully demonstrate that for you. You know, I can promise this to you because God is love, right? So if you pursue love long enough, you're going to find God as you find love. Now, I know a lot of people become frustrated in their attempt to connect with God. I hear this very often. The Bible actually gives us insight into why we struggle so much with this. Sin has become part of our world, and we know that, wow, it can become really ugly here, and we have a really hard time following the path of love. But as someone who has studied the Bible and studied God my whole life, I am promising you this morning, if you commit yourself to pursuing love, you will end up finding God. You will. In a sin-filled world where we all struggle with selfishness, of course, this is going to be a struggle, a big struggle. But God makes many promises to people that He and His love are discoverable. You can find God and you can find His love. In Jeremiah 29, He says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart." In Matthew chapter 7, Jesus said, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And the one who knocks, to the one who knocks, the door will be opened." So guys, I want to challenge you this morning. Keep pursuing love. Don't give up. Keep on seeking. Keep on knocking. Keep on asking. You know, here's a big challenge for all of us. And this is the reality in the world that we face. You know what? Everyone wants to look like they're loving. We all want to look that way, right? But few are truly willing to put others ahead of themselves. And this is true for everyone. We all want to look this way, but we really have a hard time consistently putting others ahead of ourselves. We're not good at this as fallen, selfish human beings. We also live in an era of virtue signaling and a lot of hypocrisy, to be honest. There's so much of this virtue signaling going on today. We learn to manage the cameras around us and to make sure that people only ever see the good stuff about us, right? We've become very, very good at that today. But the truth is that most of us spend the majority of our time and energy on who? On ourselves. This is still what we do. We know that this is in us. It's our fallen nature. We are obsessed with image management. And guys, Christians are just as susceptible to this. We worry about our image. We may even be more prone to it because we have high standards that we aspire to live by. That hypocrisy stuff that we've talked about, right? But if we lose ourselves and we go hard after love, we will find God and we will find all of the good things that are connected to God as well. Look at what it says in Proverbs 21. "Whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor." We want all of those things. We love those things, but we find them when we go hard after love. We pursue it. Remember, God and love go together. In 1 John chapter 4, you heard it in the scripture reading this morning. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. Love and God are so completely intertwined. So guys, if you pursue love, I'm convinced you will find God. Little warning here, guys, and that is this. If you truly pursue love and God by extension, it is going to take you to some really difficult places. It will. And we see this all through history. We see it in the Bible. If I had to pick the greatest musical act of the 80s, and I've given this a lot of thought as an 80s person, 80s teenager, I would have to give the honor to the band U2. I would have to. They were not just a band, they were a generational force. And anyone that grew up in the 80s knows just how powerful they were and have continued to be, really. You know, Bono has been a very public symbol, I think, of the tension that exists, that duality between selflessness and selfishness. And Bono would admit that. He's been quite open about that fact. In fact, I believe that this duality, this tension that he experienced was the biggest reason why the band has done so incredibly well over the years. I think often of that signature song, With or Without You. You ever take a minute and think about the lyrics of that song? Bono sings, with or without you, I can't live with or without you. And then he just breaks into this refrain of, oh. You know, I listen to a lot of popular music, and that one groan at the end of that refrain, that oh, it may be the most soulful, resonant note of an entire generation. That's how powerful it is when he sings that. You know, in music, soul is that intangible quality that takes a song to this transcendent level. It happens when an artist so undeniably feels what he or she is singing in that song that it translates to the listener and it grabs their heart. And I believe that Bono's pursuit of love and God, while being tied to so much wealth and fame, has actually been a lifelong struggle for him. One that we all in the West can relate to some degree, not to the same degree as Bono probably, but we can relate to it to some degree. We have a lot of wealth. Well, with all of the wealth and fame that Bono has, he has long understood that pursuing love and God will lead to difficult places, and he's been pretty forthright with that as well. At the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. in February 2006, listen to what he said there. He said, God may well be with us in our mansions on the hill. I hope so. And he kind of giggled at that point because he knows he's one of those people. He said he may well be with us in all manner of controversial stuff, maybe, maybe not. But the one thing that we can all agree, all faiths and all ideologies, is that God is with the vulnerable and poor. God is in the slums, in the cardboard boxes where the poor play house. God is in the silence of a mother who has infected her child with a virus that will end both of their lives. God is in the cries heard under the rubble of war. God is in the debris of wasted opportunity and lives. And God is with us if we are with them, Bono said. And there was silence in the room when Bono delivered this address. You know, so much, or my advice rather, guys, to you would be the same as what Bono delivered in that speech. Bono was basically saying, guys, pursue love. Pursue love. It's going to lead to some very difficult places, but as people who want to follow love, who want to follow God, this is where we need to go. And that advice is for those who can't seem to find God, as well as for those who think that they have. Are you listening, regular church people? As well as those of us who think that we have. Jesus was pretty direct in Matthew chapter 7 when he said, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And so your faith, if it's truly in Jesus, Jesus said, it needs to be sincere. It needs to play out in the way that you demonstrate that love to people who need it. So the first thing you need to know about love, love is the most powerful force in the universe. The second thing, if you pursue love long and hard enough, you will find God. And the last thing you need to know here this morning about love is that Jesus is the means that God has given us to find God and to find his love. Guys, if we agree that God is the source of love, we've talked about that this morning, God is love, then we must also agree that we have to stay connected to him because he is the source of love. We have to stay connected. When mankind sinned, we became separated from God, who is the source of love, and so we broke that connection, and we've had a hard time loving ever since, and our world demonstrates that. Our world is filled with the scars of being unable to love. We became aliens to God's love, and in the right moment, just the right moment of history, God came to us in the person of Jesus, and he reunited us to God by dying for our sins on the cross. And you know what? The cross is still the greatest symbol of love in our world. Anywhere you go in the world today, you see the symbol of a cross, and people understand this is a symbol of love, the greatest symbol of love that's ever existed. 1 John chapter 4, you heard this morning. Let me read it again. John says, this is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. And so you see there in the beginning of that passage, it says, God showed his love by sending his Son, Jesus, to us. And so as God, Jesus is the source of love. He is also the standard by which we measure love in our world. Can you think of any better standard than Jesus, the one who lived this perfect, sinless life and who sacrificed his life on the cross, shed his blood for his enemies? You can't find a greater example. He is also the most inspirational example of love that the world has ever seen. Now, some have questioned, well, I agree with what you're saying, Pastor Bartley, about love being this powerful force in the universe, and I agree that, we need to exercise love, but do I really need Jesus? Don't all faiths teach us to pursue love, so does it really matter? Do I really need Jesus? Well, listen, guys, if all of those faiths could have properly connected us to God and his love, God wouldn't have needed to send Jesus at all. But he did. So that tells us something. It tells us that we needed Jesus. In every way, we needed Jesus. Guys, I can guarantee you, Jesus didn't bleed and die on the cross for nothing. He taught his followers that he was God in human form. And he taught them that they needed to have a personal and vital connection with him if they were ever going to have this permanent relationship with God and with love. In John chapter 15, Jesus said, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. Nothing. Nothing of true value. Nothing of true substance when it comes to loving other people. No sustained ability to continue to love those that are different from us, who are our enemies. Guys, here's the deal. Let me wrap it up by saying this. We all need Jesus. Our world needs Jesus. As you look at the news today, remember this. We need Jesus. And it hurts our pride sometimes to admit it. We're like the soldiers who nailed Jesus to the cross. We act tough. But in the silent moments, we look up and we see him and we recognize that Jesus is something incredibly special. Bono, with the band U2, wrote the song, When Love Comes to Town. And I want to quote just a few words from that song. He says, I was there when they crucified my Lord. I held the scabbard when the soldier drew his sword. I threw the dice when they pierced his side. But I've seen love conquer the great divide. In Mark chapter 15, as one of the soldiers watched Jesus breathe his last breath, he looked up and he said, surely this man was the Son of God. And in that moment, guys, you know what? He became what we call now at Renew a courageous hypocrite. He was willing to put it out there, what he really understood to be true, what he really believed in, despite how difficult it was going to be for him to live up to that. And guys, our prayer for you today is that you will get connected to the true source of love. That is what we want for you at Renew Church. It's very simple. We want you to get connected to the true source of love. We want you to move beyond image management to full surrender to Jesus, who is the true source of love, and for you to begin a new life where God and his love are in control, leading you into difficult but the most fulfilling places.